Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Thanks for joining us on your monthly escape from planet Earth, the season finale. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about that.
Join us in BOOland, where things are much better. There are more synthesizers, more colored lights, more dancing. It's great.
That was really nice. Stuart, you should have a job in,
Should get really close on the mic, do a radio thing.
Hi. Anyway,
If you joined us.
hope you're all okay out there in the world.
Yes, we've got people all over, people in Sweden, people in America.
My iPad is I can't read it. I think my eyes finally, it's time to go for the LASIK.
That iPad was like £20, wasn't it? So it's done all right, I think.
We're a high quality thing here.
Yeah. We've got monitors everywhere.
Yeah.
No. Anyway.
So, what's coming up on tonight's show, Brie?
So much stuff. It's probably going to be a long one. We got lots of news. It's been a busy month. Tail end of gigs, other gig, and
gig. Popeye impersonation there. Here we go. And after that, some news. We've got an interview with Andy and Grace, which we did last week, which was great. And really looking forward to sharing that with you.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Synth of the Month.
Mm-hmm.
It's an oldie, but a newie at the same time.
The teasers are coming thick and fast. Sorry for saying that. Coming thick and fast.
Stop.
Yes. Sorry. And then we've got a live performance at the end to end out the show for you. And that's all coming up to you tonight on BOOcast. Whoops. Number
28.
Number 28.
There is also a surprise new segment, which I didn't put in the credits. It's
Okay.
only little, but it's very cool.
You'll see it when it comes. But that all starts on BOOcast number 28, which begins right now. Do you think it's time to change the theme tune? It's been 2 years of that.
It makes me so happy.
What do you think? That was literally thrown together in like half an hour. I was wondering, maybe we should
That's
put something.
It's so good.
Put a bit more thought into it.
No, it's brilliant.
What do you think in the chat? Is the theme tune still working for you?
Well, we could rebrand the whole title sequence, couldn't we? There is an old sort of Halloween-y version in green. I should have used that because I'm all gothed up for Halloween. It's October.
Technically, this is sort of the Halloween show, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah, because the next one's more 5th of November Guy Fawkes night area because it's the 4th, the next show. Yeah, anyway.
Yes.
I don't know if it really needs updating, but
okay, I won't.
We've been updating the
Unless
studio.
we get any comments saying, yeah, we're sick of it. Stop it. Stop it now.
Make it stop. You leave that theme tune alone,
okay, Andrew, I
says.
won't touch it.
Thanks, Andrew. I
Thank
agree.
you.
I start to get quite G'd up with the opening music as well now during the countdown because, I mean, I know it's sort of ambient and chill, but it means BOOcast is starting soon.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I mean, I don't know how it feels for you guys, but it really is an important part of the month for us.
It is.
It's been quite a month. We've had all kinds of things going on here. We've got dust everywhere, work happening on a house, all things, difficulty with stuff and neighbours and what have you. It's been great, but we've been doing things. So we've what should we do?
We'll start off quickly. A little bit of news. I mean, in the process of consolidating and tidying in the studio, we have been selling certain items that are not in use. We parted ways with the magnificent 202. Someone got a great deal on that on eBay.
And we got an even less of a good deal because of eBay's cut.
Yeah, we forgot about eBay's cut. It was quite significant.
We thought we'd share. We might put it up on the Discord. But yeah, I'm going to get rid of some other stuff, including a Roland D110 if anyone's interested in that. It's and you have it for almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's the Rev 1.4 firmware. Yeah. I don't know. D110 classic. Nick Batt. I definitely used it as the bass line on. Did you? He confessed it. Yeah, that was just a
guaranteed.
That's just a D110. So it's a bit of a sort of 90s classic because it had individual outs for the various parts, and it's sort of like the D50 but a bit more difficult to program. But if anyone's interested,
is there a bad gear on it? I think there is.
Oh yeah, probably, almost certainly. Yeah, so we're doing that. Also, I'm thinking of, I am going to sell the Chase Bliss Generation Loss, because it's lovely, but I honestly can't justify the purchase. So we're gonna it'd be better if anyone wants one, get in touch with us and we can sell it straight to you, because it will save the the commission costs to the man.
Yes.
So that's good.
I just realized we have a little bit of a gig report, and you've got photos on there.
Do I?
Yes, in a folder.
Oh, crikey, I didn't know.
That's all right. They're in that gig photos folder.
Right, okay.
So we played at the Rossi Bar just after BOOcast the same week with the OPD. And
yes.
It was the second time we played with them. It was magnificent. You could just scroll through the photos.
Cut to the pictures. Here we go.
Yeah. What a wonderful night. We had so many people there. We saw Pete Della, Pascal, and his partner. Apologies, I've forgotten her name. Neil and Karin, Andy Mayo, Nicola Zasoro, and loads of new people who'd heard us for the first time and wanted to buy our stuff, which was lovely.
Look at that great shot. I think I want to print that out. Stripey.
Yeah, it was run by Melting Vinyl, and they did a really good job of the night. It was lovely. Poor OPD had some difficulties with their sound technician, but it all got together at the end.
Yeah,
That's the guy with the computer head.
Yes.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
I saw our first ever Trustful crowd surf, which was great.
Is that what we're looking at now?
I think that's after he's on the ground.
And this is the screaming.
Probably some, what is that, primal scream therapy?
As soon as it's Trevor Deeble, isn't it?
Yeah.
As soon as he came out with his shirt off, I immediately backed to the edge of the room, as you can see.
I think a certain number of people definitely do that. When a sweaty naked man comes towards you, you just don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, hey,
I was embracing. I was like, this is going to be great, and it was. Got to scream into his green microphone.
Not to say, I mean, if sweaty naked men is your bag, then we're totally on board with that. It's just that I was quite tired, and I didn't think I'd be able to, keep my end up, as it were.
But anyway, thank you so much to those who came, because it was sold out in the end, I believe. And it was just a magnificent night for everybody involved. Had a beautiful time. In fact, there's a really lovely write-up from Nick Linazasoro in the Brighton and Hove News with pictures and everything. So I'll link that in the chat.
No, it was great fun. It was really, really nice night out and lovely. Yes.
So we have an upcoming show November 30th with Strange Gravity. That is Grant Strang from Silver Shark Studios.
Yes.
And we're going to be playing at Chats Palace, which is a magnificent old venue in where is it? Hackney.
It's sort of it's an old music hall. I've known about Chats Palace since I was a kid. It's one of those names. Chats Palace. That's nice.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, and it's all for charity. What am I doing? Sorry. It's all for charity. It's for Alzheimer's UK and another charity which I've forgotten to mention. But yeah, if you can come along, do book some tickets soon, because it's going to be a great night. It's a beautiful venue, lovely sound, great visuals. I know that Strange Gravity have really worked really hard on their visuals. It's going to be quite an astonishing show. The last thing I heard was a big pile of CRTs.
Yes.
I mean, I was just like,
They're still deciding what's going to be screening the visuals, and there's all sorts of interesting ideas in the offering.
Yeah, but it'll be great. And if you can make it, please do, because it'd be really great for those guys and for us if we have a nice throbbing crowd.
It's going to be the first time we played in London for ages.
Yeah.
So hopefully, because it's London, it's fairly central for people in the south to get to. So yeah, we can't wait to see you. We're going to bring stuff and an awesome show for you guys.
30th of November. So put that in your diary if you can, and it'd be lovely to see you there. Anything else?
This month we have started making new music again.
Oh yes, we have indeed. Now I did put a question in, and I'll put this question out to you now. For us, when we've been away from the creative process for a while, I often I have to make a good album or two's worth of utter rubbish before anything good starts happening. It's a bit, I see it like almost flushing the pipes through so that something good can come out.
Like
Sorry
when they
about
feed
the visual.
snails with greens.
Oh,
do they do that before they eat them?
Yeah, don't. I think that's You brought in a beautiful little snail today as well.
I did.
He was
lovely.
lovely.
A tiny snail in the house, and he's stretching his stalks right out on my fingers.
So I mean, I've never really revealed this online in public before, but I have a thing about snails. I love them.
Yeah,
they're the greatest creatures on earth. They're so in touch with everything, and they're so eager, and they're just like.
Tell them what you told me about the sound they make.
Oh yeah, I mean, somewhere online there's a high amplification microphone sound of a snail crunching up a leaf because they got little sharp little teeth, and
that's a little bit scary.
It's really nice. But yeah, snails. What got us onto snails?
Getting the poop
clean
out.
the pipe.
Basically,
getting the poo out. So I just want to ask you, so if you've got any suggestions, put it in the chat. So how do you overcome a blockage which has been, difficult to get started? What do? You might go for a walk. Maybe you do yoga. Perhaps you're interested in,
Well, there's the Artist's Way recommends writing 3 pages of gubbins every morning, just spewing out 3 full pages of A4. Just write whatever comes into your head continuously, and it's supposed to sort of help not only think in creative ways, but it gets the noise out of the way first. And I suppose meditation would be a good thing for that as well. You
bloody hippie. I wanted some, if you got any advice, just let us have it in the chat. That'd be really nice. And in my journeys through trying to find, some of you may go, get new gear. Some of you may go, I don't know. I'm expecting interesting comments. But I found this stuff, and I can't remember the YouTube channel's actual name, but it's a Dutch guy who revealed this free set of free plugins from, now if you don't know them, it's a company called Airwindows, and this is Airwindows. If you go to their page, this is part of the reason why I may be selling the Chase Bliss Generation Loss, because it has an astonishingly good I'm gonna just do that, an astonishingly good tape emulation. So if let's go down here. Hold on. Can I open Reaper? I'll just open a blank track and I'll go to. So there's Airwindows. So if you see that they're all quite they're all there, tape dust, tape fat, and they're all really interesting effects, very much to do with like adding genuine vibe to the sound. I don't know if you can see that. Some interesting things. But they're up to there's a plugin called 2Tape, which has a really interesting set of stuff. Now, if I open one of these, you'll see it's, there's no UI. It just looks like that. I'll just remove that. But if you, let's try again. Go down to the bottom. There's a thing called Airwindows Consolidated, which I think was made by a third party, and it gives you a slightly more useful setting. And if you go to, so let's find nonlinear space. There's all kinds of reverbs and desk emulations, tube emulations to vinyl, discontinuity, inflammation. I'm looking for, how do I get to tape? Okay, let's see how we do that. Can I do search? Oh, there it is, 2Tape 8. So this is, I can't play it to you because I can't get the audio out of this thing, but it's input and output. And that's basically a sort of Dolby encoding type thing, which slightly brightens and does interesting magical stuff. And it's all very esoteric and subtle stuff that's happening. And like, as you turn the plug-in on, you can set it set at 0.5%, which is kind of, you almost can't hear it, but it's a sort of psychoacoustic effect. It really improves things. But you've got Flutter, which is not just an LFO set to the signal. It's Chris from Chase Bliss actually describes it as it's on the X and Y axis, because tape isn't just speeding up and slowing down, it's actually warping and changing. So there's an interesting sort of complicated thing happening there. You've got flutter speed. You can change the bias of the tape, the head bump, so the position of the tape head, so you get different frequency bumps there and which frequency, and then the Dolby decoding. I'll just cut back from that. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. It's Airwindows. They're free. The guy can be supported on Patreon, I believe. But I'm quite blown away by the quality of this tape emulation plugin, because it's a really subtle thing, but it's a weird thing, because the Chase Bliss pedal is amazing, it's great, and it would be good for using live, but I don't think we're going to be using it live. But the whole thing about it is that there's a sort of, integrity thing going on. If the whole point about trying to emulate tape sound is you're trying to go for something that sounds authentically like it's that thing. Now, even if it's a really good emulation, it's emulation. That's what it is. And if I'm in the studio and I want to get that, I can do it for real. I've got 4-track and I've got tape decks and I've got all kinds of stuff. I could actually do it for real. Why emulate it when I can do it for real? And unless I'm going out live to try and do it. Anyway, I've gone on. That's my reason behind it. But this seems... I wanted to recommend it to you because there's some really interesting plugins. And also on his YouTube channel, there is a ton. Everyone gets an introduction and he explains how they all work, every single plugin. And
it's just amazing people putting this stuff out for free.
It is. It's really good.
Definitely jump on the Patreon.
He also does a thing which is a really strange meter, which he's just released the most recent one. It's constantly, things are being updated every week. He puts new things out all the time. And this meter, if you go to hit the YouTube channel for Airwindows, the most recent video is this meter. And I don't know what's going on, but it says it's a hit record meter, and you can literally tell if it's going to be a hit record.
I remember that.
I think that's what he's saying. But it's got slew for high frequencies, low frequencies, and it's not just your standard meter with RMS and whatever and LUFS and whatever. It's showing you all kinds of other information about the sound. So
we'll definitely have to run all the new tracks through it.
I don't know what it means, so it won't do us any good unless you want to look at it and see what the hell it means. But check them out, Airwindows. If you don't know about them already, I haven't even looked at the...
I've put a link in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, okay. Brilliant.
So, I had another question to ask you guys. Apropos of having difficulty getting started, recovering from setbacks as well. Like, I remember we interviewed Becky a while ago on the production of their album, and they did a lot of recording, and they lost all this work and had to do it all over again. And this happened to us. I don't know if you remember, recently we recorded a demo. I recorded some demo vocals on a track you've been working on, and I was in a really odd place, and I felt like, I've really captured something here. It's really good. And of course it hadn't recorded, which has never happened before to us, really. But it was just a fluke. And so we tried again, and I managed to remember one of the things I did, but I felt like I wasn't really in the same space. But that thing turned into a sort of you used it as a melody line for one of the synths, I think, which is great. And it reminded me of this Beatles story, Paul McCartney and John Lennon, when they started writing music together, way back when they were teenagers. They would just see each other every day, play songs, learn them, and go away, and then do it every single day. And then when they started composing together, they did the same thing, but they would have to play the song they composed over and over to remember it, because they didn't have any way of recording it. And if they got back to it the next day and they couldn't remember it, they were like, oh, well, it wasn't a very good song. If we couldn't remember it, it wasn't worth pursuing. Only the ones we remember are the ones worth keeping. And I took a little comfort in that. I thought, well, if I didn't remember the rest, it must have been very good.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember half of our songs, so.
But anyway, how do you recover when you have setbacks like that in the studio?
Yeah, it's
and pick yourself up again and go, oh, great, I've lost that magic moment. I've got to try and... But
also, how do you recover when you have setbacks live as well?
Yes.
Because that can happen. So we're talking about that with Andy and Grace in a moment, a little bit. I should explain that this is a shortened version of the interview. The full interview will be going up... soon,
yes, in a few days, I think.
But because we were talking for a good couple of hours, and managed to get it down to this is about 20 minutes, which is quite a bit of razoring went on.
But there's so much more to explore, so we will post the full thing.
We will post the full thing. But is it time for Andy and Grace now?
Yeah, let's go there.
Let's go and have a listen to the Andy and Grace interview. Are you ready?
Yes.
Everyone's sitting comfortably. Good. Okay, here we go. Hello, Andy and Grace. Thanks for joining us on the BOOcast. I'm assuming, is that your lab behind you?
Lab?
Oh,
it's my house, my apartment.
Yeah, this is Grace's apartment.
I live in a studio, I suppose. Do I? No.
Well, that's a nice place to live.
This is Grace's front room, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my front room. But I don't have a dining table. I have a sofa and some synths.
The studio, in the true sense of the word, is a place where art is happening.
Yeah.
So we saw you fairly recently up in Castle Donington. Those two words always were monsters of rock. Yeah. But we totally turned the tide, I think. And watching you guys on stage, and you had it set up beautifully, you're facing each other. There's almost a symbiotic communication relationship going on. Now, I'm betting that you've not just been playing together for the last 10 minutes, have you?
No. No. It goes back really quite a long way. When our paths first crossed as a result of the sound guy at the Arches Club here in Sheffield, where we used to be, regular punters for various techno and rave and trance nights. And he had this idea. This chap was called Flo, who was basically a hippie, a mad hippie.
He was lovely.
Lovely.
Yeah.
But his basic idea was, well, wouldn't it be great if we got loads of people in the chill out room just setting up the gear and jamming? You know, people with percussion and guitars and synths, and we're just doing jam. And he proposed this idea to me and a chap called Rupert. We talked about it and decided, let's give it a go. And Rupert said, "Can I bring my mate Grace on board?" And I went, Yeah. Well, Grace is a live sound engineer. She's currently on the road with Motorhead at the minute. I'm going,
wow.
Right. Brill. So we eventually did our first gig. We had very little pre-prepared material. We had a couple of little bits of backing ideas on
mini discs.
Well, eventually mini discs. There was cassettes. There was DATs.
Yeah, I think it was DATs
to start with. And then I took.
Blimey, that dates it.
We're talking like 1997, 1998.
So was this literally the first time you both met, basically straight on stage together?
Not quite.
No, I think we had a get together and figured some stuff out a couple of times, and then
went and did it for about 2 hours.
And when you did that first gig, was that just you two or the 12-person ensemble?
It was three of us. There was Rupert Till, Rupert's now the Professor of Music Technology at Huddersfield University. So it started off as a little side project, a bit of an amusement. But we did these gigs and we were just set up with our gear. Grace came down with loads of different effects, processors. We used my old Mackie mixer. I had a Roland W30 Pro 1 SH101 for making sounds. Me old Fostex X15 for playing bits of tapes from like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And so we just used anything that would make a noise.
Rupert had a deck, he had a 1210 and a cut mixer. He had a Pro 1 as well. What was his synth? D50.
Later and a JD800.
And he had a mini megaphone, those toy megaphones with the sort of ring modulator. And he used that quite a lot.
That sounds like
the other thing I took
beautiful...
to most of those shows was a shortwave radio.
I've got to spool back a little bit. Grace. Motorhead. This is fantastic. So you've got a real grounding in, like, you're a professional sound engineer and you've obviously worked with some great acts. I just want to ask, why aren't you playing rock guitar then?
I'm not a guitar player. A bit more than that. We all need to differentiate, don't we, between work and fun and home and not hobbies. It's more than a hobby, but it draws on my knowledge, but it also isn't what I do for bread and butter. So my headspace is different when we're doing this kind of thing than when I'm at work. So I think that's the important distinction. Being creative with my own thing is a different experience, and I wouldn't want it to be the same medium. It just wouldn't be the same, would it? So I've been using Ableton since 1999 or something ridiculous, a really long time, and I've always had it on my laptop. And most of the touring I've done in all those years, I've had a MIDI keyboard in my suitcase. So I did a lot of stuff on just Ableton for a really long time, and just because it was portable. But recent times it's just like, I've sort of done that. So it's a bit hardware.
So was playing live with like Andy and Grace, was that what made you sort of transition out of Ableton and into hardware, or did it come later?
I was already ditching all that. We use Ableton a little bit. Mostly it's just as a recording machine, really.
You've always had hardware bits, little synth boxes lying around, and hardware effects. But the Chaos pad, of course,
it's just got a bit more extreme in recent years.
Yes, hasn't it just?
But I mean, we were doing hardware jamming in that band we were in the 90s. That was hardware jamming because it was.
So what was your band called again?
It's called Chillage People.
Chillage People.
Not my name.
Awesome.
I mean,
Grace is
kudos for the name.
Grace is looking at me. I think for the entire existence of Chillage People, Grace and Rupert wanted to change it, but I thought it was brilliant.
I love it. I love the punch.
So
you guys this is in the 90s, yeah?
It was in the 90s.
Through the 90s, you were playing together.
Very end, yeah.
And into the early 2000s, yeah.
You know, we realised that quite distinct pieces of music were emerging out of it. We'd have certain almost songs. They were never quite the same twice, and then we just decided to pool all our gear together and created. It was quite immense.
Well, whenever we used to do gigs, all three of us rip our home setups apart to do gigs.
Bit of a headache.
I honestly, these days, I have no idea how I did it.
He lives at the top of 5 flights of stairs.
Yeah, I know. I live. It's honest. Yeah, I was younger and fitter and could do it. These days, it's like, you know, I'm even thinking of downsizing my case again because it's big and heavy and bulky. But I like the presence on the stage of the gear. I think it gives a necessary focal point. Sometimes if you're just using one box, people are going, well, what are you doing? What's happening? People need to see what you're doing.
Well, our friends who watched us play a lot of Chillage People gigs would say that what they used to do is try and work out who was making what sound. It's a weird observation, but it's also very interesting because with electronic music, it's like, well, you don't necessarily know what bit of kit's, so they try and watch our movements to sort of figure out where the sounds are coming from.
I mean, it's largely improvised. You're obviously connecting and communicating with each other through the whole show, and we can see that. Do either of you slip into various roles or jobs? Do
you have special signals?
Oh, yeah. Do you have special signals?
Because it's almost like when you guys were looking at each other, you knew what the other was thinking.
Very meaningful looks going on.
Oh no, what have I done?
Well, when you guys do as well, you know, I mean, anybody who performs with other people learns some non-verbal communication quite quickly, don't they? And any form of musical endeavour, you know, even like on an orchestral level, everybody's looking at one person there. But yeah, certainly it may divide. I do more rhythm and Andy does more melody, but we're both capable of switching that over. Mm-hmm. And it's actually quite interesting when you do chop it up and change it, because it's another form of playing with dynamics, isn't it? It's not a dynamic range thing, it's an interpersonal dynamic, but it's still a dynamic. If I need to do a 303 madness, I'm going to need both my hands to do a 303 madness. And so if we need any drum rolls, he's got to do them, you know, so...
that's definitely like that triumvirate of the almost psychic connection and instinctive communication between you, the instruments themselves on stage, and that bit of spontaneity you get, because it's not on rails by any means. There's so much room for, but it feels very spontaneous and exciting to watch, and then on top of that the music's great as well.
Well, thank you, because I was very definitely off the rails at the start of the off the tracks. I mean,
really?
I went off track, yes.
When at the start, one of those moments of where I'm just looking at it going, I don't know what any of this does. And we're listening back to the recording of it. It's about 2.5 minutes before I make a sound. And the sound that I make is a little hi-hat going... Honestly,
sounds like there's a solo project in the offing here, Grace.
Well, you know, Grace does things as well, but it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh. And eventually, I've listened to it through a number of times now, and there are some glaring errors, but eventually you get locked in. But it was just that moment.
Yeah, that really threw you, didn't it?
And I had that little pixie sitting on my shoulder going, you're going to do it again, it's going to happen again. And it was the first time that's ever happened to me. That really...
Well done recovering from
I'd never seen that look on Andy's face before. It's a very unusual moment.
I was actually talking to our friend Peter about this precise thing. But I think that's almost the definition of how you become a performer. Is how do you deal with it when it completely
what happens when it goes wrong? The word is jeopardy, isn't it? And it's
that was Jim Glue's word, actually. He said that.
That EMOM thing, I mean, that wasn't an EMOM that we saw you at, but it's interesting when you talk to people who do lots of EMOMing, it's like you are creating a micro jeopardy, because it's a short moment. You know, you're doing a 15, 20-minute thing, and when people ask, how should I approach it? It's always like, well, cover your bases, don't be too elaborate, there's going to be jeopardy anyway, but don't make any extra.
I just want to first of all ask you a little bit about what happened to Chillage People in the end. And then how did you start working together again?
I stopped doing Church People because of work stuff mostly.
So Rupert and I carried on. A couple of other people got involved. A chap called Graham. You know, we had a couple of gigs in Portugal at Boom Festival there in the Chill Out tent. In 2004, I had a massive asthma attack that nearly killed me. And I recovered, went and did the Boom Festival, came back, was due to start work again, and just went... hit the wall.
Oh my God.
Absolute, you know, and I had my first, we'll call it midlife crisis. I was, 2004, and I'll be 34. And my rational judgment went, and I thought, right, I need to do something. I need to change. I need a big change. I'm going to go and live in Spain. And I'd left Chilling People. We'd had the final parting gig, and that was the end of it. And actually,
at this point, I heard that Andy had left the country, but I hadn't seen him.
Yeah, that was the plan. I really was planning to go to Spain, but it all went wrong, and I stopped doing anything with music. My gear was pretty much dismantled, stashed in a corner of the room, lost interest in it completely, and it was only really around 2015, and I started watching music-related things on YouTube, and started getting really interested in these little things that were coming out at the time, like the Volkers and the Electribes, and got my gear out and set it all up again, and my old analogues were in a parlous state. The W30, you know, the keyboard was all glued together, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to get these repaired somewhere. In the meantime, I bought myself some Volkers. I bought the Electribe, the sampler and the synth combo. And then a few years ago...
2018, 2019?
Oh, no, that was about 3 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Let's
well, I heard from... I knew you weren't in Spain, but for about 8 or 9 years, I thought Andy was in Spain, but he was actually just 2 miles away.
So, you know, Grace told me, I'll come around and help you do this.
This is more than 3 years ago.
Troubleshooting, yeah. This is
pre-pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, this is around the 2015 sort of... So we come around, I've got my nice pair of Roland DS5 active monitors. They're really nice speakers, they were. And I've got my Mackie set up, the one I used to gig with, the one Chillage People used, the one that I've been standing in a corner, gathering dust and spider poo and all sorts of the rest of it. And we set it up. Suddenly, there's smoke coming out of the back of the right speaker. I mean, literally, and then flames. I'm going to switch it all off, switch it all off. Basically, Grace blew my monitor up.
Yeah.
What did Grace do? She came round and wrote off my Mackie 1604, a pair of Roland.
Saved you from a certain electrical death, I would imagine.
Very probably.
Yeah,
I should be very grateful.
The other way of looking at it.
And you've got a better desk and better speakers since, no doubt.
No, the next mixer.
I've never been allowed to forget that.
No, I know.
It's 10 years ago, and I'm still having to.
The speakers I've got now are okay. They do the job. They're fine. I bought a bearing.
You just come over here when you want to hear proper speakers.
Yeah. I think the moral is
don't let Grace
only get stuff alone for the best part of the decade.
Don't leave it propped up against the wall.
Or as we like to say, do more jams.
Do more jams.
Yeah, so you guys got back together, kind of started making music in 2015. Where did Hardware Jams enter into this?
All right, okay. So sometime in 2021, another dear mutual friend of ours, a guy called Michael, rang me up and he said, I've just seen Andy Vonal on the telly. And I'm like, what? Yeah, he's on YouTube. And I'm like, what? What's he doing on YouTube? He's talking about synths, and he seems quite knowledgeable. Well, he is very knowledgeable. He's always known as synths, Andy, right? And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that was a kind of thing, And it was the Ramsey show. I don't know if you've ever watched Ramsey's show, but Andy used to be one of the 3 regulars on Ramsey, and they talk about modular on that.
Yeah, Ramsey's big into his modular stuff.
And he'd been farming YouTube for content, basically, and devouring what he could find, as he do. I wasn't really down the rabbit hole, particularly at that point, but he was like, I watched a Ramsey thing, jumped into the chat, the second show that I watched, inevitably started talking to Inky quite quickly. Bless her. And that was the beginning of it all, right? And then I found out about Hardware Jams from Inky and started watching that a bit. We started chatting on the phone, and she and a guy called Inverted Popes, who I don't know if you know, Chob, who's another wonderful musician, were both ribbing Andy about, you're always talking about music, but you never make it. They were teasing him. Full on.
And I can't deny that.
And I rang up Inky one day and I said, leave it to me. and that's when then I rang him up and said, do you want to come around and do a jam? And that wasn't the first thing. We just did a jam to see how it felt, and decided there was something worth pursuing.
Was all the original spark sort of reignited?
That was a conversation that went down, was because actually a lot of it is still there. Yes.
Yeah, the first jam that we did, called Here We Go Again, it struck me just how much like some of the Chillage People stuff it was, and that the essence of those ideas were there and still coming through. Then we did our first proper Hardware Jams entry, which was called Somnambulists. The challenge was, where do we go when we sleep? So it's quite a mellow ambient thing, and it's still to this day one of my absolute favourite jams that we've done.
Maybe we should go there and have a little quick peek at that right now.
Why not? Why not? Most weekends when Grace was available, we would do our contribution to Hardware Jams, and we got involved to the point where, Grace, you're now one of the admins for Hardware Jams.
So don't let me plug the speakers in, though.
It's good. I mean, we've also done Hardware Jams meetups where different people turn up.
That's fun. Yeah,
we've done that in Leeds. We've done it in Sheffield. We did one at a rehearsal studios in York.
Yeah.
So is this like not quite an EMOM, but more a sort of everyone?
It's kind of a gathering, really.
It's like half a dozen people, 4 or 5, 6 people in a room, and then you just muck about for a few hours and come out with a few bits of interesting music.
You guys touched on this earlier, but I was wondering, do you have tips for other people who want to get into EMOMs or live hardware jams, like for their first outing? Because you guys have been doing it for a while now.
To start with, keep it simple and be ready for disaster, and have spare cables and have some batteries and have a torch, and the obvious things that it's going to be dark, and think about tuning and whether you can do it with some headphones or earphones for monitoring rather than relying on space, especially on EMOM type things, because it's generally not well equipped audio wise. It's roughing it a bit, so you don't quite know what you're going to get, so you need to be prepared. And
the EMOM environment is very variable. You don't know if you're going to have monitoring.
You don't know how long you're going to get to set up, so you have to keep it. You have to know how to set your stuff up quickly. You need to practice setting it up.
What we really want to do is turn up to a show, do a really good show, and then get the hell out of there as quick as you can.
Getting out and playing live. Some people are very reluctant. Some people just say, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. Some people say, and my advice would be, just do it. Get out of your comfort zone, because your music takes on a different essence when you perform it live. My advice to people would be, get up and do it, and you will thank yourself afterwards for doing so. In terms of mistakes that people make, quite a lot of people do turn up with a lot of separate little things and then try and plug in the power, plug in the MIDI, then they've got to troubleshoot because they plugged something in the wrong, and that's a real problem. If you can turn up like Grace does, see, this is already all set up on a stand, plonk, power on, go.
This would be an excellent moment to have a quick tour of your respective rigs.
Right, so this is my modular system. It has grown and evolved over 4 years. Things come in, things come out. So this is its current setup, and as you can see, it's a modular mess. On this side of the case here, my main brain is the Hermod Plus, which has got CV outputs, it's got MIDI outputs, it's got trigger outputs, and they're all going there to sound modules, which are sort of over here. So they've got all these cables going right across. On the other side, I've got the 1010 Blue Box Eurorack mixer, which is just an absolutely phenomenal module. It's great. These two together have been an absolute game changer in my system. But again, it's all the audio coming in is on the left-hand side, so you get all these cables coming out of your modules and being mixed over here, so they've got these trains of cables, but that's an issue. So all these modules in the middle, which I've got, some of which are generating sound, it's quite hard to get at them because I've buried them under the cables.
You need to sort of cable bridge.
It's bad cable management, and I need to sort it.
Have you thought about Gaz's what are they called? The little sort of
it's cable condoms
thing. That's what they guess. Those things.
He didn't like it when I called him that. Cable sausage. The upper rig again, a lot of sound generating stuff. But the top row, I've got the 8-step sequencer. The module next to it here, that's from a chap called Chris Makeshifter, Chris Jeffries, who's on Ramsey's show. He's built this module to add ratcheting to the 182 sequencer. Quantizer. Then next to that, an original Euclidean circles module, which sends out rhythmic patterns, and that's going out to bass drum module, so I could mute the bass drum. So you can hear that's triggering at the bass drum, and I can make the pattern denser just by turning the dial. The Euclidean circles, the bottom row is sending out a trigger to the West test on the bottom row. You did ask me about that, Chris, in the gig. All I can get out of it is a doing. So it's a very nice doing, and you can. Similar to Territus Alta for mega clanks. Turn that off. And then next to the Basimilus is a Bitbox Micro, which is a sampler module, and I've got various samples in here and things. So at the minute there's a nice sort of Mellotron sample, which is coming in the mix. Then a drum module. So this is essentially my system.
Oh, great. Well, can we have a look at Grace now? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, and that's all stopped. So we'll move over to Grace. I'll pass the microphone to Grace and pick up.
This is my live system here, this little lot here. Yeah. And like Andy said, it's all built into a box. So basically, I can pick that up. I need to plug one mains cable in, audio out from the mixer. I've got a pair of cables that go to Andy, which is there's a DIN sync box under here and a MIDI through splitter, so he gets a MIDI leg and a DIN sync leg. The analog rhythm is in charge of all things timing, so I've also got a Microfreak. I've got a Labyrinth, which is a new addition recently, and I've got.
How are you finding that?
I love it, but I like chaos. So if you're trying to reproduce things with it, it's really frustrating because you just won't be able to. You either have to be recording all the time or be prepared for it never to repeat, and embrace where it's going to take you rather than where you're going to take it. Space Echo pedal, and I've got a Moog 2, which are both getting clock as well, so they do timed effects. This is a lovely machine. It's got a beautiful reverb, and it'll do like micro loops, so you can do almost granular. And then over here is the Zox box, which has replaced my TD3. It's another 303 emulation, but it's an earlier one. But the special thing about this is it used to belong to Mr. Wiggly.
That's
and next to it is a rat pedal, which also was Dom's as well. My mixer, which is rather special, is a CQ18 by Allen and Heath. I've been asked to assess it because I'm friends with Allen and Heath.
How many channels have you got there?
It's 18 inputs.
And how's the latency on it? Is it quite
great? No, it's
really snappy,
really fast. Yeah, it's
fantastic.
Really good. Maybe 13 inches long and 8 inches that way. It's smaller than the analog rhythm.
So you're in charge of clock. You're basically it's your band in my book. That says.
My band, his talents. Is that what you're saying?
What's next for you guys? You got some gigs coming up?
Yes, we've got Bristronica After Party a week on Saturday. We're very much looking forward to that. That's going to be a really great event. We're getting ourselves sort of ready now for that. And then we've got perhaps a couple of EMOMs coming up. We've definitely got Stoke on the 28th of December, which again, we're playing a slightly extended slot there. They've been gracious enough because we're coming quite a distance to say we'll play a bit longer. Grace?
That'd be brilliant.
I'm doing a solo Grace Griffin EMOM performance on the 5th of November in Todmorden at wonderful Dave Walker's EMOM. Yeah. I'm just beginning to put Andy and Grace Volume 4 together for our Bandcamp page.
Yes.
If you go to our andyandgrace.bandcamp.com, you'll find 3 volumes of jams already, and I'm going to put number 4 together soon.
Great.
So now we're going to get to what you're practicing.
We'll jam out for a minute or two. Let's go.
Hey.
I'm getting
Great.
flashbacks to the show. Such good stuff. So if you can get out to see them, highly recommend it. They do a brilliant show. Yeah,
it was brilliant. It was wonderful to meet you up in Castle Donington.
Yes.
Really nice. And thanks again to Jim Glue for putting us together like that. It was really nice. Actually, while I think about it, you might see this book behind me. I'll just go and get it.
It's covered in lasers.
Can you hold that up for a second? So Jim gave me this. It's a sort of circular letter, a sort of pyramid selling of a book, and Jim was passed this on. As you can see, there's loads of writing on the inside front cover where people have apparently read it, and passed it on to the next person. So I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to work out who I'm going to pass this on to. I'm reading it now. I'm nearly halfway through. Jim, you felt bad because you hadn't read past the introduction. You've actually written it in there, so I'm not actually. I hope you're okay with me sharing this, but you went, I didn't read it. I feel really bad, but I've got to pass it on because it's been a year. I know for a fact that nobody has read this book. I'm just looking at the pages, and I know no one has read it because I can see where I've read it.
In case you didn't know, folks, we both used to be booksellers.
Yes.
So we are qualified to make these claims.
Jim, you have no need to feel ashamed. This book hasn't been read before.
It's good though, right? You're enjoying it.
It's really good. It's really interesting. Yeah, really nice. It reminds me, do you know what? It reminds me of the making of the atomic bomb.
Oh, wow. That's a fantastic book.
It's that in depth. Yeah.
Richard
Rhodes.
What a book.
It's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, it sounds a bit dark. And of course it is, but it's actually quite beautiful and amazing, interesting, deep. It's that thick and it's great.
It goes into every single scientist who touched the project. And
I'm getting the vibes.
Lives.
I'm getting the vibes from this.
Fantastic. Jim was also saying in the chat, love the Jeopardy, enjoy the Jeopardy.
Yeah,
that is a big part of playing live. Poor Peter Coit said recently played and had a Blue Sky malfunction at a Deep Listen gig last week, and it totally threw me. Finished early, but should have fixed it and started again. It was the old dead lead problem with the sound desk issue, which we had at a few gigs ago, didn't we, with the CS1?
Yeah, it just didn't work. Yeah, one of the channels has died. Yeah,
mixers.
Yep.
Andrew Kay says, if you're worried about losing stuff, just back up all the time.
Yeah.
And going back to at the top of the show, we were talking about how do you pull yourself back into creative work when it's been a bit of a break and it's hard to clearing the blockage. Warren Harrison said, I listen to music in genres I'm not usually interested in. That triggers things. Wagyu said, blockages for me are hunting for cables, which I know I have somewhere. I upgraded to Sequoia too early and Roland drivers now don't work.
Oh, crikey.
So he's just got to wait for an update. So the tech stuff does get in the way sometimes.
Especially with the Mac OS update. So it's like just classic. Things just stop working, don't they? Yeah. I've got a weird thing with my Mac where the clock's all wrong and then all the plugins stop working because they're not signed and they don't work
It's
anymore.
Almost like a joke though because it says it's April 1st every time.
And it comes on as Thursday, April the 1st. I should go back to I should check when Thursday was an April the 1st and work it out. What were you saying about before? Just the one before that? I was about to say something.
Listening to music in genres I'm not interested in.
I mean, I totally, I used to, I remember very clearly this thing when I was writing for Cats and I'd listen to a lot of Elvis Costello.
Oh, he's a good songwriter. That's a good
he is, but it's not. It's not what I do. But it really inspired me to go, back and do other things. I get it. Listen to things in genres you're not working in.
When we were listening to Yesterday, Tomorrow, New, it was all Black Sabbath. I mean, we were writing Yesterday, Tomorrow.
Yeah, we had a Black Sabbath binge, didn't we? And it was really nice because obviously, if you're totally immersed in the electronic stuff, it can be a bit like you get lost in like, well, I can't. Most of the sounds have all been, used before. It's just good to get out there and listen to other things. Yeah, totally. I get that.
Yeah.
Good.
And when you're creating stuff as well, sometimes it's hard not to compare yourself to other things in your area.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that really gets in the way.
And then to feel like, I can't, this sounds like a bit like that. And I can't pursue this anymore because it's too derivative or connected with something else. Yeah.
Spaces in Noise says, I watch boffins break down classic songs on YouTube and then I try what they did, but I usually misunderstand what it is that they did and hopefully come up with something fresh.
Yeah, well, that's a classic technique, is try and copy something, but copy it badly and then end up with something new.
Thomas Yon said, I do that for piano compositions. So yeah, you can do it for anything.
I love it. Well, it's amazing playing with it's an electronic, it's a digital piano, but it's still it feels like a piano. But all the songs in the world, you notice the similar structures and the similar cadences and the similar
keys
and chord changes and like you
range.
Go, wow, these are doing the same things. It's quite odd.
It's like peeking behind the curtain, isn't it? A little bit.
Yeah.
Peter Quaty mentioned also that the OPD are playing Coastal Electronauts in December.
Fantastic.
Off a synth Christmas party. So yeah, that would be great if you can get to Whitstable in December. I'm not sure what date it is, but they put on a great night down there.
So office Christmas parties are always a scene of, impropriety, aren't they?
We know there's going to be a sweaty naked man there.
Yes,
so
we certainly do.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
And of course it was Synth Fest this weekend, just gone. A few people in the chat are talking about they went and had a good time. We weren't able to go, but it's Machina Brastronica this weekend.
This weekend, yes.
We aren't going to make it, unfortunately.
We can't make it. We
just got too much on with houseworks, works, and
all
the works.
We couldn't really spare the dosh as well for the travelling, the transport, the tickets themselves,
everything. But we really want to go. It looks like such a great lineup.
I wish we were there.
There's
There's so many sorts of Heimbach and obviously Andy and Grace are playing,
and
there's loads of great people going to be there.
Fabulous people. So if you are going, have a great time for us. It's going to be good.
Did any of you go to Synthfest in Sheffield? By the way?
A few people in the chat did.
Because did any of you see Tom Carpenter's Analog Solutions new thing that basically looks like an ARP 2500? Did anyone see that? What's going on there?
I didn't see that.
No, I just saw it the other day.
Is it
I should have shown it to you.
another big one, or is it?
It's another big one. Yeah, Tom's just churning out the big ones. Did any of you see that? Anyway, I'll check in the chat.
There's an ARP
see.
connection there, isn't there?
Oh, there certainly is. Well, what a fantastic segue. Shall we have a synth of the month?
Let's have synth of the month.
Okay, here comes synth of the month. Synth of the month. The BOOcast synth of the month is the Korg Odyssey. Hello again. Here's a question for you. Do you prefer Herbie Hancock or Add N to X? You like both, you say? Well, you're in luck. Here's the Odyssey. Since its release by ARP in 1972, the Odyssey found its way into the music and, more importantly, the live rigs of such diverse acts as Elton John, Jethro Tull, Nine Inch Nails, ABBA, Chick Corea, Devo, Gary Newman and Kraftwerk, to name but a few. Now, I always wanted one, and with the prices of original units skyrocketing, I was overjoyed when in 2014 Korg announced that they would be reissuing the Odyssey, albeit in a slightly shrunken format. And we're going to take a look at it right now. And if anyone asks you, is the Odyssey a funk synth or a punk synth, you can tell them it's both. Finally, the Korg ARP Odyssey, and this is the whiteface module version, and the reason it's a whiteface module version is because, well, yeah, you know the story, maybe you don't. I saw one of these and played one in the early 2000s in a shop on Charing Cross Road in London, and I fell in love with it, and it was ridiculously cheap, and I didn't have the money to buy it. So when this came out and I had the money to buy it, it had to be the whiteface, not only because of that, but also because this is the one that Florian Schneider played in Kraftwerk. And it's emotional. Ooh, it's dirty as well. So it's almost the ARP answer to the Mini Moog, in the sense that this is a non-patchable synthesizer. It's completely wired up internally, exactly like the Mini Moog is. And as the Mini Moog was a more portable version of the Moog modular systems, this is a more portable version of the ARP 2600 and an even more portable version of the ARP 2500. And as you'll see, it contained many of the great features of the 2600, just in a much more stripped down, more manageable, portable form. So what have we got here? Let's have a look. It's actually laid out quite differently to the Mini Moog, and there's quite an emphasis on modulation, which we'll come to, which is very ARP. Let's have a look. First of all, we've got 2 oscillators. I'll just bring up oscillator 1. I'm playing this from the Arturia key step, so let's just bring up the volume, bring up the filter. So the oscillators have a freely tunable range from very high to quite low. Oscillator 1 can also be turned into low frequency mode. We can hear that. Very, very helpfully, there's a fine tune control. Before I move on to oscillator 2, the other sound source is the noise generator, which goes from white to pink. Just turn that on. White, pink. Next we have oscillator 2. I'm going to run along the top here first and then come back along the bottom. I think that might make more sense. So oscillator 2, similarly, just tune that up, has similarly wide tuning with a subtle control. And you can blend them here in the mixer down here. So they're very, very easy to tune. And the synthesizer is duophonic. Which is something that came from the ARP 2600 and has been carried over here, and it's as default. You had to do a little bit of patching on the ARP 2600 to get it to be duophonic, but it's completely standard on the Odyssey. So, just realised I've got the high pass on. Let's turn that off. That's better. So yeah, you can tune these with each other and get chords. But we've also got sync on oscillator 2, which syncs oscillator 2 to oscillator 1. You can get that nice syncy sound thing. In fact, just quickly go down to the bottom shelf. We can use the ADSR to modulate the pitch of oscillator 2, which is great when you've got sync on. I'll just play it on its own. So now the ADSR envelope is modulating the pitch. But I put sync on. Get that lovely teary get those nice teary sounds. So we've got sync. Let's move along. We've also got one LFO, which can be tied to, I can see working along the top and then working along the bottom isn't actually going to work here. So let's abandon that idea. Okay, so the LFO is one single LFO and it outputs a sine and a square simultaneously. You can put the sine into oscillator 1. Let's take it out of sync. We can also do the same with oscillator 1. Modulate 1 on its own, modulate them both. Furthermore, there's in the proportional pitch control, which we'll come to in a second, this is a weird touch-sensitive bender. In the middle, there's a modulation, which applies the sine wave from the LFO to both the oscillators simultaneously. But you can do one on its own, giving that extra fatness. But you can also tune oscillator 1 to the square wave. There you go, I'll turn the drive off. So you can have one oscillator being modulated and the other one not, which is nice. This is where it starts to diverge from the idea of the Mini Moog, because, I mean, you can't do that on the Mini Moog, just modulate one oscillator and leave the other one straight. The Mini Moog, you've got the mod wheel, and you've got a switch for pitch and a switch for filter. That's it. All of these switches along the bottom of the Odyssey are something, most of them, sorry, most of these switches along the bottom and most of these sliders along the bottom are something to do with modulation. So that gives you an idea of how different this is from the Mini Moog. And it does have a certain quality. I mean, when we come to the filter, we'll definitely hear something there. There we go. So we can modulate with the LFO. Coming along these switches here, so this is the LFO modulation switch for oscillator 1. Goes from sine wave to square. The LFO modulation switch for oscillator 2 goes from LFO to SH mixer or pedal. So this brings us to the, although there's only one LFO, well, two if you count oscillator 1 when you can switch it to LFO mode. Beneath this LFO, we have this section here, which is the SH mixer and sample and hold sections. Just like in the 2600, you don't just have to have sample and hold giving you that random computer noise, which you can, so let's do that. Bring this up to here, push this switch up to sample and hold. So there's two modulation inputs here. And bring up the noise. So as you see, that is sampling noise. You can basically tell it how much to do it. You can come right down low, have it like a sort of confused wasp. Or right up here, have your broken computer fun. Let's go to square wave. LFO only goes up to 20 Hertz, down to 0.2 Hertz. So what the sample and hold mixer is, it's inputting into the sample and hold circuit. So you can choose what to put into it. You've got a choice anyway. So we choose noise here. You get random. But if you choose the saw wave of VCO1, you can hear that's got a slight pattern to it. So what it's doing is it's sampling the saw wave at different, according to the clock of the LFO. And it's because it's a regular pattern coming out, you're getting a kind of regular sequence coming out of this random circuit. If you change the frequency of oscillator 1, you get different effects. So that's a kind of random sound, but it's, you can hear it's obeying a law. There, we change the speed of the LFO. You can hear as the frequency of the LFO is interacting with the frequency of the sawtooth here. And you get different patterns according to how fast it's going. There we go. So that's quite nice. And obviously we can click that into sync. And we've got quite a lovely sort of effect there. Nice. So we've used the saw wave, but what happens if you use the square wave? Well, the saw wave is doing this, so you were getting samples at different values here, but a square wave is doing that. So we'll only get, in theory, we'll just get one value or another value, so... Interesting. Another thing we can do with this whole SH mixer sample hold LFO section here is we can set it to keyboard trigger. Now while it's in LFO trigger, the LFO speed is telling it when to do its thing, but when we go to keyboard trigger, it's just on key presses it moves it on and takes a sample. In fact, if I just put an arpeggio in, which is just one note, I'm just playing one note on the keyboard here. If I bring this down. So with the sample and hold mixer set to only take the square wave from VCO1, we get this sort of rhythmic thing. And I'll bring up VCO2 into the SH mixer. It's almost a sequence. So I just realized I was sounding a bit gritty because I had the SH mixer or pedal going into the filter. So let's turn that off. We can also trigger the envelopes from the LFO. Add a bit of noise. There we go. A kind of bongo solo. we can mix the saw from VCO1 and the square from VCO2 and just muck around with this. So we're just messing with pitch at the moment, but we can also control the filter with this section. So let's move on to the filter. So the original Whiteface Odyssey had a 12 dB filter, and the Golden Brown Odyssey had the 24 dB Moog copyright infringing filter, and the final Mark III, that's the black and orange ones, had the 4075 filter, which is another 24 dB filter. Now Korg have let us have all three of these filter types here, and also a couple of extra things which you don't get on the original. But the first filter type is the 12 dB. And also, unusually for a 12 dB filter, it has an ability to self-oscillate, so we can hear that on its own. Keyboard CV is controlled from here, bring it up full. So yeah, you can perfectly play the filter through the keyboard. And then the next one, that's the Moog one. If I want to put something through it. So with the Moog one, yeah, there's a bit of a drop in the low frequencies. Very nice. And with the final version, so you can hear they have, even just at this setting with just one sawtooth, you can hear they have quite different qualities. But that's great, so filter switching is a real bonus with this for sound design, because you can hear the difference just with this one setting. We've also got a high-pass filter, which feels like a 6 dB. I may be wrong. I'm going to go back to the 12 dB filter, which actually is my favourite, funnily enough. I'm not sure if it's because I had an early experience of it with my Charing Cross Road tragedy, but it's kind of my favourite. We've also got a drive switch, which just pushes a bit of extra girth through the filter. And if you listen to that, juiciness to it. Let's put another oscillator in there. That's jolly nice. Below the filter we've got the audio mixer, and this is, confusingly, this is where you select the oscillator shapes for the oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 waveforms. So the switches are at the bottom, saw and square, that's all you get. We've also got ring mod, so that ring modulates oscillator 2 with oscillator 1. I'll just bring them both down. That's on noise, let's put it down to ring mod. And that's a really lovely biting sound. And when used polyphonically, you get all that lovely. So when you play the keyboard polyphonically, your right hand, so you can only play 2 notes at a time, and when you're playing 2 notes at a time, your right hand controls oscillator 2 and your left hand controls oscillator 1. So because oscillator 1 is modulating oscillator 2, if I hold one note high up and just move the left hand around, you get different modulation frequencies going into the ring mod, and obviously you can bring them all up together. Let's bring this down a bit. I'm going to adjust the amount of ADSR going into the filter. So we can control the cutoff frequency with the ADSR via this switch here. I love that sound. And we bring in the portamento. Incidentally, the portamento slider, which is here, has a little mode switch. It switches between 2 different portamentos, which were associated with 2 of the different revisions of the Odyssey. I haven't actually tried that. There we go. Oh, yeah, and we got 2 octave up and 2 octave down, which is a nice touch because instead of just going 1 up and 1 down, we go all the way. So here we are in the mixer. So we've got the ring mod, we got noise, we got oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 relative levels, and then we've got modulation into the filter. So we can take the keyboard CV, set the keyboard CV up full, so the filter opens up and down the keyboard. If I bring that like that, which is quite a common thing. Basically, as notes get higher on real instruments, they tend to get a little bit brighter. So that's what that's doing. The mistake I made earlier is I had this switched to SH mixer or pedal. So this takes the input from here, the SH mixer. So whatever's going into here will modulate the filter when this is in the down position. So now the filter's been modulated by oscillator 1. Now if I put oscillator 1 into low frequency mode, it's quite nice, isn't it? So oscillator 1 is currently a sawtooth. If I make it a square, and if I change the pulse width, you get sort of swinging effect. Something I forgot to mention, we've also got pulse width modulations. So we're using oscillator 1 as an LFO, so that's modulating the filter. We can now use the LFO to modulate the pulse width of oscillator 2. In fact, we can use it to modulate the pulse width of oscillator 1, which is currently an LFO. So that's keyboard control voltage or straight out of this SH mixer into there. Moving on, we can modulate the filter with the LFO. So let's bring that up. We can only use the sine wave here, but then we can also switch it up to sample and hold. And as we did before, I'm going to put noise into the sample and hold so you can hear that, with the LFO triggering it. Take the noise out. So VCO2 now set to square wave, going into the sample and hold mixer. We can actually set VCO2 to a saw, even though we're still outputting the square here as well. I'm going to set the ADSR envelope generator to LFO repeat and the AR envelope to repeat. Gives you that nice sequenced thing going. One thing I will say about the Korg Odyssey is it seems to me that the LFO re-triggers on every key press, and I haven't yet found a way of stopping it from doing that. If you can hear that, it doesn't keep going, although you can just set it to auto-repeat. So yeah, we can put the sample and hold straight into the filter. So then we can choose the amount of modulation coming from the envelopes. So we've got 2 envelopes. We've got an attack release envelope and an attack decay sustained release envelope. And this switch can choose which is going to modulate the filter. So I'm going to go to AR. So we're actually using the 2-stage envelope, which is sometimes useful, and we can also use the ADSR, which is perhaps a little bit more useful. Following the flowchart through, we can then go through the high-pass filter, which cuts out the low frequencies if you want them to go, and then into the amplifier, the VCA. Now the VCA, again, you can choose which of the envelopes is going to trigger the VCA. So we've used AR here, but we can use ADSR. which has a slightly... Obviously, there are more stages to this, which means you can shape the sound a little bit better. On an old Roland synth like the SH1, for example, I mean, we have 2 envelopes there as well. And what I would generally do is, for nice chunky filter sounds, I would set the VCA to go through the AR envelope. So it's just on. No messing around. And set the filter to go through the ADSR. Because that gives you lovely... Watch your ears. It gives you lovely bass kicks and zap sounds. Put the keyboard CV up. Listening to that filter and the resonance, I've had the drive on all this time as well. I'll turn it off. But that filter response with just getting that kicked zap, it sounds more biting and it goes lower than the Mini Moog one does, at least on my Mini Moog, because if you listen to that, it goes all the way down. You feel that rumbling. Now on my it's a reissue Mini Moog. It only goes down to about there, and then it fades away. So I'd say this is a better filter response, especially for those kind of kick sort of things. Let's put that. Obviously, I'll leave it up there. Put a bit of noise in. Nice drum sound there. It's visually very different to the Mini Moog, and we've got sliders instead of knobs. And I think that probably makes it easier to use in a live situation because you can see where everything's set just at a glance. You can sort of guess what kind of sound you're going to get if you're in a rush. Although, of course, we don't have any of those nice Moog switches between feet of oscillators. You've got to kind of find it. But then we got a little fine tune, which I think mitigates that a little bit. So I don't know, is it easier or is it more difficult? I don't know. But the thing is that it looks different. It's set up differently. I mean, you select the waveform in the mixer and you come back and forward between there and there, which invites you to move around the whole surface a little bit more. It's less of a flow chart diagram because, yeah, it's a modulation monster. Let's face it. Almost all of this on the bottom is to do with modulation. And you can get some pretty incredible sounds out of it. It's a great synth. It's been used by funk acts, it's been used by all kinds of people, and it's been used by Gary Newman and John Fox and all those people, and that's the kind of region I obviously lean towards. I haven't got a funky bone in my body, but yeah, it's this kind of thing. Yeah, I just love it. I'm going to hold this note until the end of the video. Listen. It's just doing that all by itself. Yeah, I mean, some people have said that the Mini Moog is a bit like a Les Paul and that the Odyssey is more like a Strat and maybe even more specifically, I think a Telecaster. I think it's got that rock thing going. This is going to cut through. You're not going to have any trouble hearing this on stage. All right, good night. Thanks for watching. There you go. Thanks for watching, indeed. Yeah.
Very, very popular. It's a classic for sure, as Wagyu said. A few people are saying, Analog Mechanic said, I've got a Korg and a BARP, the Behringer one. Not much between them. The BARP has FX and a sequencer on board, but still pretty good. Paul Wagyu sold the Rev 3 module, and it was after a Rev 1 White, but they seem to be quite rare in the wild. But got a BARP in the meantime.
Yeah, they were sort of limited edition. The Rev 1 and the Rev 2 were sort of limited editions on the Korg's reissue. So I didn't. It didn't even figure in my head. I guess they might be more difficult to come by.
You just grabbed it as soon as you got the opportunity, though, didn't you?
Yes, I did, because you know the story.
Yeah,
it's the white face. So yeah,
it has to be.
Florian Schneider played it.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much love for Billy Currie as well. Andrew Brooks is a big fan and says, "I've been after one for so long. I have a Pro One and an SH-101. I need this to complete the set."
Yeah, you do.
Nicholas Bryant said it would be nice to be able to clock the sample and hold externally.
Yeah, I mean, you can take trigger in to trigger that. I guess you can just, if you do CV and gate, you can just remove the CV portion from it and play it by hand and use the gate to trigger that clock. So yeah, it can be timed. And yeah, the LFO does trigger the envelopes and everything, and that's a lot of fun to play with, but obviously getting it in sync with something else is quite difficult. There's no way of syncing the LFO to anything, which is, I'm currently going through that at the moment, so I don't have very many LFOs that are syncable. In fact, the Dominion 1 is the most useful pair of 3 LFOs, actually. The 2 main LFOs on the Dominion 1 are most useful because they can re-trigger and you can sort of time them so that they're in sync, or slightly out of sync if you want to do that as well, which is nice. But good point. You can re-trigger those things with external gates.
Okay, cool. Coastal Electronauts Andrew Analog Mechanic piped in. That date for the Christmas party is the 12th of December. For those that can make it. AD Vision was going back to inspiration. Classical music and jazz is always good for ideas. And Andrew Brooks said, "I need Beethoven every day. It's a ritual." I'm down with that. Beethoven every day. That's made me realise we need to listen to more Beethoven.
It's part of the reason we left our last flat, was I think that one night.
One night.
We did have a Beethoven night.
We went too far.
We had the 5th and then the 9th.
We played it as loud as possible.
Way too loud. It's great.
We were inside the orchestra.
I have the same birthday as Beethoven, by the way.
Yes.
And Benny from ABBA.
Explains everything. Yeah, Beethoven and Benny.
And Jane Austen.
Doesn't get better than that.
Go figure.
Andy Brooks also said when you finish the book, he'd love to read it. Send it on to him.
Okay. Yes, we can do that. You have to promise to read it, though. Yeah. And then, Jim, I just wanted to make sure you don't feel too bad anymore, because I don't think anyone else read it either. Anyway, so what's next? Oh, what's that?
What's this I'm holding? Oh, it's a very exclusive new bit of merch for our boosters.
Only available to our boosters.
And Boo.
And basically, it's at cost price. Basically, there's no.
Yeah, the mugs are quite.
We're just selling it straight to you for the price it costs to make them. So if you want one of those, do grab it. So where do I go now? Hold on.
If you go to bit.ly/boosters, I think I'll put the link in the chat. You can join us as a subscriber, which means you can give us a monthly donation of as little as $3, I think it is, and you get all sorts of stuff, stems, exclusive demos, unreleased EPs. Look at all these. They just keep on going. Oh, don't right-click. Look at them all of the music.
Yeah.
Exclusive merch. You get 10% off all merch as well.
Got a whole bunch of stuff lined up that I'm currently working on to maybe put in here for the exclusive EPs, or even exclusive tapes from the past. Just stuff that no one else has ever heard.
And
it
honestly,
can be yours.
This really does help us keep going in Boo Studios and do these things every month, because it just helps us function. So thank you so much to those people.
I mean, don't underestimate how much it means to us, because, I mean, apart from the fact that the love is there, but it's those sustaining donations really help to keep us going. Sorry, I used the phrase sustaining donations.
That's all right.
I wasn't meant to do it, but you're really helping us get by. It is
sustaining. And every time we get that little notification that one comes through, we're like, oh my God, it's just an inspiration and a motivator. And I mean, thank you.
So if you can, do please try and support us on the and become a booster on Bandcamp, which it's just there's a lot of stuff there.
We do our best to make it worth your while. Give you lots of goodies.
If you join for the first time now, there is so much stuff there. I mean, it'll probably take you a good 2 or 3 months to get through it.
And of course, you can share your remixes onto our Discord, which I'm just loading.
So if you can't, we understand that times are really tough, and then if you can't quite fork out for a subscription, you can join our Discord.
Yes,
where there's lots of stuff there. Tell us about that.
General chit chat. There's BOOcast. You can suggest things for the show that we should talk about and cover. I mean, it's getting close to Christmas time, so maybe we will consider having another quiz.
But yes,
you could talk about gear. Share your music. We love hearing what you guys are doing, and then we love sharing it on the show as well. Spreading the good word about the good music. Events, EMOMs, let us know what you've got. And of course, the remixes. It's always joy hearing what you guys come up with for with our stems.
Yeah, absolutely. We love all that music. It's brilliant. I say absolutely way too often. I must stop saying that word.
I think I say fantastic quite a lot.
Absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic.
But we just want to say a really big thank you to all of you who have continued to support us. And by way of showing our thanks a little bit, we've just put this little thing together. We've decided every month we're going to have a roll call of all the new badge holders. So if you are a booster for 6 months, you will win the BOOpeter badge. It's a coveted item. Not many people have it. It's very high quality. It's very beautiful. And if you see another person wearing a BOOpeter badge, I guarantee you will be friends.
And these are not for sale anywhere. They can only be earned. So respect to the BOOpeter badge holders.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll the roll call. So we have a roll call.
Did we say it's 6 months of subscription?
This is after 6 months of subscription, you win a BOOpeter badge. So we've decided we're going to say a big thank you to all of you who have already won the BOOpeter badge after supporting us for 6 months. Shall we?
Yeah.
So let the roll call commence. That's the wrong button. BOOpeter badge roll call.
Booster badge holders scroll of honor. We salute you. Andrew Kupchevsky,
Stefan Last,
Steve Turnbull,
Ian J. Cole,
James Newcomb,
Craig William,
Paul Mouchline,
Adam Embry,
Warren Harrison,
Sean Parsons,
Jeff Terranova,
Jeff Potter,
Andrew Van,
Ian Heath,
Paul Harkness,
Jörg Schaeffner,
Tom Grimshaw,
Pascal Aubrey,
Technomatic,
David Heel,
Andrew Walford,
Nick Hay,
Gary Goldfish,
Ed Francie,
Andrew Mayo,
Rob Sloan,
Wagyu,
Ian Pass,
Simon Goodwin,
Neil Wharton,
Andrew Loveland,
Jerome Gorman,
Michael Carker,
No Labels Blizz,
Andy Vonal,
Andy McCree,
Adrian Wright,
Reno Van Grunen,
Rich Cure,
Evan D.B. Gray,
Sean Parsons,
Julian Edge,
Zach Lure,
and Christopher Miller. And joining the roll this month, we salute Izzy Monkey.
Welcome. Thank you so much, guys. That roll call is going to be shorter next month because we're just going to update it with the new badge earners. But we really wanted to give our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you who's been supporting us for such a long time because it helps us do what we do. And I think, this is a good thing we're all doing together and you guys make it what it is too. So thank you.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, we can't thank you enough. Thank you.
I'm excited. It's the month of Halloween. It's the month of spooky stuff. We're watching, it's mostly terrible horror movies. We haven't seen The Substance yet. Which
I'm really looking forward to that.
Very excited to see. In cinemas now, horrible body horror.
What did we
feminist
see?
Weirdness.
We've watched some horror movies,
we
haven't we?
saw a very good one called, and it's quite obscure, called Who Would Kill a Child?
Hurt a Child.
Kill a child.
Who would hurt a child?
Well, it was from 1976.
I'm going to Google it.
I'm pretty sure it's Who Would Kill a Child. But it's an English couple in Spain, heavily pregnant lady and her partner, and it's very touristy and busy, and they want to get away from it all. So he says, come over to this little island I know I've been before. It's great. It's the real Spain. It's tiny. They go there, and there are no adults. Why are there no adults?
We won't spoil it for you. I'm worried we're going to get demonetized now because you said that twice. You can't say that kind of thing on YouTube. They instantly go.
What thing?
You know the words you used to describe that film, the title.
Oh, what is it? Could it be misconstrued? You're going to have to educate me later on the YouTube taboo.
Everyone,
they say, what do they say instead of...
Just unalived.
Unalived. That's right. It's like 1984. It's so weird.
Yeah, and that's a good film.
Double plus good film.
Yes, very good. We've been watching the Thin Man movies, which are old 1930s films about. They're sort of like crime thriller comedy.
Capers.
Yeah, they're great. Check those out. Yeah, we have a bit of a black and white thing.
We better watch some good horror films because The Omen 3 was rubbish.
Anyway, you got any ideas for great horror films?
Yeah, put them in the chat.
If you do go and see The Substance, tell us about it.
Tell us what you thought.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I really am.
But our next BOOcast is going to be November 4th, I think, which is the night before Bonfire Night in the UK, or Guy Fawkes Night. And
the night before the American election.
Oh, good luck,
guys. I
always
nearly say election. I don't know what it is. That's all happening.
It's all happening.
It's all happening. And before we return you to planet Earth, sorry, we have to do this.
Yes, we do.
We're going to say thank you very much for joining us on BOOcast number whatever the hell it was,
28.
28.
Yeah.
It's really, as ever, a joy to have you all here.
Absolute
Although we're all
joy.
sort of virtually here, it feels great.
We're sorry we won't make it to Machina Brastronica, but we look forward to watching reports and hearing more from you on what it was like.
Yeah, we're going to be watching until our eyes are on stalks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have a beautiful month, everybody.
Have a beautiful month and take care of each other and yourselves and everyone else and just...
rock on.
And spread the love.
Yeah. Party on, dude.
Okay. We're going to leave you with a little tune now, which is from our performance at...
Coastal Electronauts
in the summer. So we're just a brief glimpse of the summer and we'll say goodnight. Okay. We love you.
We love you. Good night.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
This is a song off our latest album called Dead News.
Talking about the dead news. I see the dead news, baby, lying on the floor for you. I'm closing the door to you. Don't want to hear the dead news. Dead news, baby, creeping round the floor with you. It isn't what you want to do, but it's what you're bloody going to do. Dead news, sold to the job, walking in your dead man's shoes, ticking all the time again, walking round your last meal in your dead man's shoes. Now it's all over, yeah, it's all over now. Yeah, it's all over, yeah, it's all over now. Dead news, talking about the dead news on the floor. Dead news, baby, dead news. Do you want more short views? Subject to the focus groups. Everybody's nudging you in suits and out of their minds. Look around, it's all over now. Guess you better find a job. It's all over now. It's all over now. What you gonna do with your skills? You haven't got skills apart from lying and walking in dead shoes. Dead news, talking about the dead news. I see the dead news, baby, lying on the floor for you. I'm closing the door to you. Don't want to read the dead news. Dead news, baby. Creeping around the floor with you. It isn't what you want to do, but it's what you're bloody going to do. Dead news, baby. Creeping around the floor with you. It isn't what you want to do, but it's what you're bloody going to do. Dead news. Talking about the dead news.